different kind of video, and it's the books that I read in the month of September. Today is the last day of September, so I thought it was perfect to do. So I'm going to show you the books I've read this month, and then there is a little bit of a book haul at the end of the video. So the first book I read, and I've put up a review on either before or after this, and this is The Memory Book by Rowan Coleman. It's about a lady who gets early onset dementia, and it's just her dealing with slowly losing her memory and coming to terms with it, and how her family are dealing with it, and obviously they're writing this memory book for her for when she can no longer remember sort of like who they are and events that have happened in her life. So that was the first book. The second book I read was 13 Minutes by Sarah Pinborough. This book is about a girl who's tried to be killed, and she ends up in a really icy river, and the story follows her trying to find out how this accident happened and who's responsible for it, and there's some sketchy things going on with her friends, and she's cautious of whether they may have tried to kill her or harm her in any way. So I thought this was a pretty good book. As far as ratings, for The Memory Book, I believe I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. For 13 Minutes, it was quite a good book. And like I said, I read it pretty quickly. On the back it does say it's not suitable for younger readers, so if you're in the lower sort of teen bracket, then maybe sort of stay away from it. Yeah, like I said, it was just a really quick book. The next one I read was The Murder on the Links by Agatha Christie. After I read that 13 Minutes, I was sort of on like a murder mystery type kick, and so this was the one that I picked up. It's about a man that is found stabbed in the middle of a golf course, and obviously Poirot was trying to investigate. I will read the blurb on the back just so you have a little bit more of an idea. It says, an urgent cry for help brings Poirot to France, but he arrives too late to save his client, whose brutally stabbed body now lies face downwards in a shallow grave on a golf course. But why is the dead man wearing an overcoat that's too big for him, and who was the impassioned love letter in the pocket for? Before Poirot can answer these questions, the case is turned upside down by the discovery of a second identically murdered corpse. So yeah, Agatha Christie books are always really intriguing to me. I have like a whole little pile of them down here, and I've got one more up here on my to be read shelf, and I always seem to just like find Poirot books the most interesting ones out of the Agatha Christie series. Like I prefer Poirot over Miss Marple, so that was that one. And then the next 3 books I read are part of a trilogy. I was thinking about doing a book review, but I think I'll just sort of summarise it in this video. It is the Perfect Ruin trilogy by Lauren De Stefano. Done the the Chemical Garden trilogy, which is a really great trilogy that I love. So I was really interested to see if her writing style was similar in this set of books, and I really enjoyed this. I flew through it. As soon as I read the first one, I had to order the other 2 books. So the first one is Perfect Ruin, and then you've got Burning Kingdoms, and then you've got Broken Crowns. And I will just tell you a bit about Perfect Ruin. So there's this city that essentially floats in the sky called Internment, and Morgan is the main protagonist, and all her life she's known not to go near the edge, but she's always been fascinated with what lies at the edge of their world, what lies underneath them. They obviously know that there is a world beneath them, but they don't know like what circumstances they live in and things like that. Just read you the back of the book, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my thoughts on it. So it says, in the floating city of Interment, you can be anything you dream unless you get too close to the edge. It is forbidden to think about the world beyond the edge, and too much curiosity leads only to disaster. The loss of her older brother taught Morgan that lesson. He jumped and fell. With the support of her fiancé and close friends, Morgan resumes a normal as life as possible, as she struggles to accept her brother's decision until the incredible happens and the opportunity to investigate the city's deepest secrets becomes impossible for her to resist. Nothing can prepare Morgan for what she will learn or whom she will lose. So I found this whole internment world really, really interesting. I really engaged with the characters and the whole sort of world that it was set in, so I thoroughly enjoyed this whole trilogy. I found the second book to be a bit... I find a lot of second books and trilogies are a bit sort of meh, and then it sort of picks up again for the third book. The first book's usually always my favourite because it sort of sets the scene and you're first introduced into this new dystopian world. But yeah, I found it really interesting because they have what's called betrothments. So basically they are coupled up with people, so I believe they take tests and they get they're put together with people who they believe are going to be compatible, and yeah, I found that whole aspect really interesting, and it would have been interesting to see how Morgan went through that process. I think that would be a really good sort of companion book. Then she may have actually written it, I don't know, but as far as like the main books, I think that would be really cool to include at some point. And because of the nature of the city and of internment, they only let people live till they're 70, and everything's very sort of regimented in how they live. They are only allowed to have, they're not allowed to have twin births, and you have to put yourself into a process of a queue, and then once it sort of, I guess, gets to your number in the line, you're allowed to have children, and if you have accidentally become pregnant, you have to terminate it. So I found it just a really intriguing sort of futuristic dystopian world. In the first book there's a big event that happens and sort of sparks off the whole storyline, and that is when a girl is found dead with like slashed wrists on a train track, and obviously that is grossly investigated and they think that it's her betrothed that has killed her, and that's sort of where it spirals and people start to doubt the system and what they're being told, and Morgan wants to try and find a way to get to the city and the world below. So I won't really talk about the other two books as much because obviously it's going to spoil what happens in the first one. The story did keep me gripped throughout. The third book was sort of all over the place really. But yeah, I would definitely say the first book is the best as far as sort of plot line and just getting introduced and thrown into the book. I really recommend this trilogy, especially if you like either dystopian fantasy books or you like Lauren DeStefano's work. And then the last book I read this month and finished yesterday was Breathe by Sarah Crossan. I believe she also wrote One, which is a book that I read last month in August about conjoined twins. I don't know, it doesn't say in the front, but I'm pretty sure it's the same Sarah Crossan that wrote both of these books. So I was interested to see how her writing was for sort of something more dystopian. And whereas I really, really enjoyed the book One and her writing style then, I didn't quite get as engaged in Breathe as I thought that maybe I would. It is a dystopian. It's about a world where everyone lives in this pod, and basically what happened to the earth was that too many people were being populated and born, and they had to end up killing. They had to cut down all the trees to make for more agricultural land so they could produce more food for people. But obviously with the reduce in oxygen being produced from the trees and like the methane and all those gases being brought up from the agricultural side of things, the amount of oxygen in the air went down, and they decided to build the pod, which is essentially a large dome, and they pump, this company or government called Breathe has found a way to produce oxygen and pump it into people's houses and into the pod. So yeah, I'll read the back. It says, when oxygen levels plunge in a treeless world, a state lottery decides who will live inside the pod. Everyone else will slowly suffocate. So basically when they were first decided about this pod, they essentially did a raffle, and lucky people got to go and live in the pod, whereas others who weren't lucky enough had to stay outside and either die from the lack of oxygen or try and buy their way into the pod. It says, years later, society is divided into premiums and auxiliaries. Only premiums can afford enough oxygen to live a normal life. Dissenters to the regime are ejected from the pod. So, if you're a premium, you can buy pretty much anything, and you can obviously buy more oxygen, which allows you to do more things. And we find out that obviously Breathe and the government is pumping more oxygen than actually needed, so people are paying for more than they actually need, and they feel that they need it. So it's this whole sort of vicious circle for them. And yeah, there's obviously a group of rebels that are trying to overthrow this government and get the actual truth out there that you can breathe with less oxygen, and that the government is going out to cut down any trees that are being planted and things like that. It says Alina belongs to a rebel group. On the verge of capture, she is rescued by a premium boy. They escape the pod, but with only 2 days worth of air, outside the unearthed conspiracy on a breathtaking scale. Everything depends on their survival. So there's this girl called Bee, or Bo, or however you say it, I wasn't quite sure, but in my head I called her Bee. Bee and Quinn. Bee is an auxiliary, and one of her friends who she's pretty in love with is a premium called Quinn, and he decides to take her on this like camping trip outside the pod. And along the way he meets this girl called Alina, who he's taken very smitten by, and he actually, when they're at the border to get outside the pod, sees Alina try to escape and ends up helping her. So then those three are outside the pod and trying to survive. Alina's obviously trying to get to her little rebel group, and Bo is very like torn in what she wants to do, because she wanted to be on this trip with Quinn, and yeah, they're like, what the hell to do with that situation. So I thought it was a good book. Like I said, I wasn't as sort of gripped as I was with the Perfect Ruin trilogy. This is a duology, and I have just ordered the second book, which hasn't arrived yet, otherwise I would have shown you in this video. But that is what it looks like. The next one's called Resist. So it would be interesting to see what lies ahead in the second book. So those are the books that I read this month. Altogether I read 7 books. I really quite liked quite a few of the books I read. I was in a really good reading mood. Obviously the Memory Book and Perfect Ruin were pretty high contenders. And then I will show you the other 2 books that have come that I bought on Amazon. The first one, which is probably the one I'm going to be reading next, is 102 Minutes, which, as you can probably tell, is about the 9/11 attacks. This is the definitive account of the fight to survive inside the Twin Towers by Jim Dwyer and Kevin Flynn. There is a lady that I follow on YouTube, can't quite remember the name of her channel. It's like Reading with Pugs or something. Her name's Jen, and she has a little dog pug called Belle, but basically she did a video around 9/11 of all of sort of her top 9/11 books, and she's had a very personal account of the 9/11 tragedy, and she obviously has a very emotional tie with it, and there's a lot of personal stuff for her, but she also recommended a lot of really great 9/11 books, and I've never really read any 9/11 books. I feel this may be, now I'm looking at it, maybe slightly too factual, as in like there may be 2 facts that might boggle my mind, and like sometimes I find if there's too many perspectives in one book from different people, I can sometimes get a bit confused. But I thought I would buy this book. There are a couple of other 9/11 books that I want to get, which are they're fictional books, but obviously like they're somewhat factual based on the event. Yeah, so it's an account of what happened inside the Twin Towers by people, I guess, that were in there and survived. And then the other book that I got is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I'm really interested to read this. I know the film has just come out, and from what I gather, it's about a girl. Well, I'll read you the back of the book. It says Rachel catches the same commuter train every morning. She knows it will wait at the same signal each time, overlooking a row of back gardens. She's even started to feel like she knows the people who live in one of the houses. Their life as she sees it is perfect. If only Rachel could be that happy. And then she sees something shocking, and in one moment everything changes. Now Rachel has a chance to become a part of the lives she's only watched from afar. Now they'll see she's much more than just the girl on the train. So from what I gather, from what I've heard, is she ends up seeing a murder while she's on the train, and somehow she becomes involved with it. So I'm really excited to read this. It sounds like a really good sort of murder mystery. One thing I will say, I bought this for Amazon on there for like £3, and usually I like try and see if I can get a better deal than just like the one Amazon's selling, which is usually like £7. But sometimes they put up the book depository and things like that. So these two both came from like the same selling company, and this said it was in good condition and everything. Well, I do not believe this to be in good condition at all. So I have put on Amazon that I would like them to replace it because it's damaged, and they did say that they're going to send out a new one and I don't have to send this back. So we'll see. I will keep it until then in case they end up needing evidence, but like the pages were all crumpled, and like that is just like horrific to look at, and like the bottom bit here is all like peeled up. Like it's like the box wasn't beaten up or anything, but it looked sort of like slightly open, so it's obviously been caught in transit and not happy. So I'll wait till I get my new one. I'm slightly disappointed because I did want to read this like straight away, but what can you do? So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just something slightly different rather than me doing book review after book review each month, because sometimes I find I don't have enough to say without making, like, while still keeping it spoiler free. So I thought I would just do this video. If you like this type of video, let me know and I can start doing them monthly. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.